Hey everyone, it's Richard Metalfan here, bringing you guys an old school album review. And it's not really an anniversary today. In fact, this album doesn't have its 40-year anniversary until next year. But I decided to review this now because I'm going to be seeing this band headline day 3 of Psycho Las Vegas next week. So if anybody's going to that, I'll see you there. But as you can see by the title, today we're going to be talking about Melissa by the almighty Mercyful Fate, the band's debut album released on October 30th, 1983 through Roadrunner Records. Now, I don't need to go much into detail with Mercyful Fate. I'm pretty sure everybody has heard about them, and I don't think there's really much to say about Mercyful Fate that hasn't been said already by plenty of other people in heavy metal history. Iconic band, pretty much. A lot of would be a big influence on the whole thrash metal scene in like Metallica, Slayer, Testament, and Exodus, and even like death metal bands like Death, Morbid Angel, Obituary, and Cannibal Corpse cite Mercyful Fate as influence. And they also, a lot of people put the label Mercyful Fate as like that first wave of black metal in the early to mid 80s, along with like Venom and Bathory. I mean, I don't really consider them black metal per se, just straight up heavy metal, but they have that whole aesthetic, that corpse paint and like satanic imagery. But yeah, Mercyful Fate, they formed in 1981 in Copenhagen, Denmark. Now originally, it was after their old band called Bratz broken up, and they were like a punk metal band which features the almighty King Diamond, as well as guitarists Hank Sherman and Michael Denner. And they only had like 2 albums, and then they broke up, and then Diamond and Sherman were working on new material that was like heavier than Bratz's previous work. And I've heard, from what I heard, the label that they were on, CBS, CBS, I can't even speak today, I'm just reading from what I'm seeing on Wikipedia, who were not pleased by the material, and they demanded to stop singing in English and become more commercial. But yeah, they were like, fuck that, and they decided to form Mercyful Fate. And then I think eventually they were playing locally around Denmark, and then they got signed to Roadrunner Records. And then July of 1983, they recorded Melissa, and then ended up being released in October of that year. And from what I heard, this was the character of Melissa, which was burned at the stake, which appears for the first time on the debut album and throughout the band's work. And yeah. Yeah, and I heard that this album got a lot of shit from like the PMRS, the Parents Music Resource Center, as well as the Filthy 15 songs, due to like the whole occult content and satanic imagery and shit, which I'm like, fuck that. It just sounds awesome. Like, the way to describe this album, it feels like combining the satanic lyricism of Venom with like the traditional heavy metal of like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. And Mercyful Fate definitely proved to be one of the forces of like that, combining like the first wave of black metal with like straight up old school heavy metal. And one thing to note is just the production on this album is great. It was produced by Henrik Lund, and I think it just has the very raw production sounding. I mean, this was 1983. I mean, you're not gonna have like perfect production at that standards. One thing to note is just the vocals. Like, I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it again. King Diamond, great vocalist. Has an iconic voice. Once you hear it, you definitely know who the fuck it is. And then the guitar work on this album is tight from Michael Denner and can't even speak today. Hank Sherman. Both of them, their guitar playing is really tight. Definitely come up with some riffs and sick everything. And then the bass playing from Timmy Hansen, rest in peace. The bass playing is definitely pretty audible. You could definitely hear it well in the mix. And the drumming from Kim Ruz just really does well. So yeah, I pretty much rambled on for nearly 4.5 minutes. So let's just dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is Evil. And without a doubt, that first riff is just, no pun intended, very evil sounding. It's one of the most memorable riffs in heavy metal history. It has a guitar assault, pretty much the listener's ear, and King Diamond joins in with a falsetto scream, and the song explodes into like the first verse. And if there was ever a perfect metal song, this is it. Everything about it works, from the melodic riffing from the first half to the blistering solos during like the instrumental part of the song. And then the dark demonic lyrics hit well, especially like To See You Die, like most Merciful Fate songs. And this song bears similarities of like that whole new wave of British heavy metal, well, that was popular at the time. It has very grim and very occult lyrics, which gives it like that dark evil twist that the little new wave British metal songs have. And then next up is Curse of the Pharaohs. Now it begins with a very kind of like thrashy intro before bursting into the riff, and is the first of several Merciful Fate songs to contain lyrics inspired by ancient Egypt, hence the title Curse of the Pharaohs. And it's one of the less occult-driven songs on this album. Similar to most of the album songs, it almost has a eerie vibe to it. It's made effective by the constant shouting and minimalistic drumming and bass. And the song has a really great guitar work from, of course, Sherman and Denner, and they playing off of each other's riffs and the solos, and the aggressiveness of Curse of the Pharaohs make it a fantastic intro into the next song, which is called Into the Coven. Now this song surprises the listener with having a very beautifully melodic intro, and the gorgeous intro, which almost kind of reminds you a little bit of like Fight Fire with Fire by Metallica, which builds up like the song's kind of like riff, and the mid-tempo pacing and the bass-driven sound combined with the utterly just evil, blasphemous lyrics makes Into the Coven dark and disturbing. And this song was so blasphemous, from what I've heard, that it was given like enough for this album to be banned in many parts of the world. And King Diamond gives one of the best performances of his career during this song. The verses are sung in his like low octave. Every verse ends with a falsetto shout of yow yow. And the guitar solos highlights the song as well, and they're very melodic, and it adds really to the song's dark atmosphere. Overall, this song is an exercise of dark and atmospheric imagery, and is one of the most memorable songs on here. Moving on to At the Sound of the Demon Bell. Now, this is one of the less memorable songs on this album, but despite this, it's still great. It has one of the best, more melodic songs on here, and the guitar, especially the verses, mix things up by adding kind of like a more of a groove-oriented kind of feel to it, and the bass really shines here. It constantly chugs along in the background, adding sort of like a groovy structure to the song, and the guitar solo near the end is fantastic, one of the best on the entire album. And then we get into Black Funeral. Now, this song makes no attempt to impress you with a fancy intro. Rather, the guitar starts right up with a riff as soon as the song begins. Despite it being one of the most straightforward on this album, this song should not be overlooked. The guitars and drums are extremely aggressive, and King's kind of like vocals during the song are possibly the highest of his career. And the frightening lyrics dealing with the bloody sacrificing of a woman to Satan. And honestly, this is like one of the most evilest songs to be ever put on the record. And then we get to the masterpiece known as Satan's Fall. Pretty much the longest song on the album. Pretty much 11 and a half minutes long. And it's pretty much about like a third of this album in length. It has a collection of amazing guitar solos and fantastic riffs. And the song opens up with a light and fast riff and speedy vocals. And the riff becomes more darker for the next verse. And the vocals become slow and high-pitched. And as the verses continue, the riff becomes more darker and more eerie, and has an onslaught of high-pitched, frightening laughs out of nowhere. And this song changes constantly as the song goes on, with long instrumental portions filled with like the shredding guitar solos, changing the acoustic passages with the strong rhythms. And honestly, this song is just really hard to describe, and it needs to be heard to be fully understood. And then we close things out with the title track of the album, Melissa. And this is one of the most unique Mercyful Fate songs ever, and the lullaby like intro continues into the song's first verse, which has King Diamond doing sort of like the cleanest vocals on this album. His singing utilizes a great restraint, which he still switches between his high and low register, and he doesn't wail, growl, or scream. The lyrics concern a hanging of a witch by the name of Melissa, pretty much referencing the human skull King Diamond owned and used as like a prop if you see him live. And the singer laments about the death of Melissa and asks why she was taken from him. And this song emotionally is a real tearjerker, as an unexpected quality for a Mercyful Fate song to have. And as the song builds, the guitars become more heavier and more aggressive, and this song retains in its slow pace, however making the guitar solos melodic and beautiful. And King's vocal delivery throughout this song changes. Like at first his voice is calm and restrained, and as the song goes on he loses that restraint and resumes his typical falsetto that he is known for. However, the most effective moments in this song, from what I here it is, where King Diamond sounds like he's about to burst in this tear. So, and the gorgeous riff at the beginning is repeated at the end of the song with the whisper of like, I think Melissa's still with us, and then the song ends, which gives you chills overall. Now, overall, Melissa by Mercyful Fate, it's like no wonder that this is one of the most influential albums in the history of heavy metal. Well, every song like distinguishes itself from the last, and no two are the same. Like, everything is just perfect. And I don't know, it's just fucking great. So if I were to give this on a score, I'm going to give Melissa by Mercyful Fate a solid 10 out of 10. No surprise there. So yep, that's my review of Melissa by Mercyful Fate, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.